When I first arrived in New York in 1993, first arrived in America, and I came from Munich, where I had finished art school and was a sculptor. And I was looking for new challenges and possibly a new medium. And having arrived in New York, I rented this interesting, quite marvelous and wonderful loft with exciting views into Midtown of New York. And I decided there to turn this loft into a pinhole camera to record the views and to turn the situation from which I got to know the city into my recording apparatus, and to basically use the windows through which I saw the city as a lens and simply replace my own physicality with photographic paper. For the pinhole camera, all you need is a black box, and if you put a little hole in one side, light will enter and project an upside down and reversed image onto the opposite wall. That's the most simple form of a photographic camera, and it's a device that has existed throughout history that we know, only that in 1839 the chemistry was invented to capture and preserve a tangible image. I've just changed the scale and made a room-size pinhole camera by darkening a room completely, putting black materials over the windows, blocking light coming in from the doors, and then I put a very simple little pinhole on the window surface. I had originally planned to just do this one project in my own loft upon arrival in New York, and I hadn't planned on making this a method that I would carry forward. But the fascination with the images that I had made was so great that I thought I should continue to experiment. That part was always clear. The image stays a negative. It was about producing a substitute for the viewer to have the experience that I had. My intent was not to produce a replica of an image, and therefore the negativity of the imagery was just an outcome of the idea and fine by me. It's a very involved process. It often takes several days to outfit the room in the way I need it to be and to place, if you wish, the image exactly where I want it to be. And then for an exposure, I set up the paper and I remain in the room and I direct the light. And I take very, very detailed notes of what I'm doing in the camera. I dodge and burn. I dodge areas that would be exposing faster and burn areas that need more time, and manipulate the image in that way. However, coming and going from the camera I try to do it as little as possible, because whenever I leave the camera, I lose my eyesight, so to speak, because after half hour my eyes adjust to seeing, anybody's eyes adjust to seeing with very, very minimal light. And I work with such a small pinhole that it really takes a long time to see the projected image. I did want to make work that reflected the architectural scale of the camera, which was a room. And once the work was accomplished, the viewer standing in front of it would have the experience of being in a room filled with this view. Yes, the scale of the image is supposed to reflect the scale of the camera. My initial interest for photographing in Venice was the idea that when the city floods, because the water is fairly still and shallow, I would have this fascinating reflection of the city that folds into its own image. That was the reason why I went to Venice and why I set up my first location in Piazza San Marco, which is usually the location that is most prone to flooding. And that idea of the beauty of the city folding in on its own image was also just a parallel or an analogy to the photographic process, which works with reflected light and reflected image and the upside down image. Being in Venice, I've obviously found so many wonderful locations that I expanded my work there and photographed also elsewhere outside of Piazza San Marco, like the image that we're showing in this show, which was taken from the studio that I occupied there, which was on the Grand Canal and had this wonderful view again onto water. And again, I could seek to work with the reflections of the buildings onto the water. It can be quite difficult to frame the image in the scale that I work with. And if I feel like I need extra information in the image, be it architectural or that I just need to gain extra black to balance the sky, the black sky against the architecture that I'm photographing, I will extend the paper, tweak the paper around a corner or on the floor. But bending the paper then, of course, bends the perspective lines. And after developing the image and hanging it flat on the wall, the memory of the bent lines where the paper ran will be preserved. So the little tower in our image sits perfectly straight on top of the Palazzo in Venice.